Okay, let's call forward the meeting of Calleguas Board of Directors. And at this time, I want to call for Pledge of Allegiance. Director Roberts.
So we'll do it again. Hand over your heart, repeat after me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to intervene here a bit and talk a little bit about Christine McCaffrey. This is her first meeting here as GM. And as soon as I get this. At this time, she is taking the helm at an exciting time at Calleguas, and we know she is up for the challenge. This General Manager Goff and the work of implementing our new model for resilience, but there is much more to do. And much of it is a continuation of what she's been doing. Between taking a leading role in the drafting of the 2023 strategic plan and the project management of the water resources implementation strategy, RIST itself, building on the water supply alternative studies she also managed. She possesses the experience and knowledge to bring this new model for resilience forward. With her 20 years of experience at Calleguas, and I wanted to have a little bit of fun with that because we had a presentation from Tony Goff some years ago, and here's 29 projects of which most of these would be touched by Christine. And we go to the more recent assignments as Deputy General Manager, overseeing engineering, IT operations, and water resources. Christine knows how this place works down to the nuts and bolts. And we are gratified to be able to provide stability and continuity in this transition for staff, for us on the board, for our purveyors, and for the hundreds of thousands of Ventura County residents, businesses, and institutions in our service area. General McCaffrey, you have the full confidence and support of the board. We are excited about what the future looks like under your leadership, and we look forward to working with you in this new capacity. So on behalf of the entire Calleguas Board of Directors, congratulations. Okay, and now we'll do the roll call.
Yes. Director Robert,
Here.
Director McMillan,
Here.
Director Avila,
Here.
Director Waters is absent, Director Quady.
Yep. Here.
Got it.
Got it?
Okay.
Okay. And we have public?
Public in the room and online.
Okay, so we will note this portion of the agenda may be utilized by any member of the public to address the board of directors on any matter within the jurisdiction of the board that does not appear on the agenda. Depending on the subject matter, the board of directors may be unable to respond at this time or until the specific topic is placed on the agenda at a future Calleguas board meeting in accordance with the Ralph M. Brown Act. Please limit remarks to 3 minutes. We have comments.
I have 2 comments, speaker cards.
Very good. Let's move it. Start with Tony Tremblay. Oh, yeah.
Mr. President, I'm here on item 7A1, so I'd like to reserve until then. It's an item on the agenda. Thank you.
And then the other one is also for 7A1. So I guess I'll just go. So no presentations at this time.
No presentations.
Items to be added to the agenda.
No items to be added.
Okay, so we'll go to the consent calendar.
We had a request from bond counsel after the preparation of the agenda to move item 5C from the consent to the action items section of the agenda. Pull it down.
Very good. So talking 5A, 5B, and any questions from the board? I'll step through the payment registers. Any questions that you flagged? We'll step through them all. Okay. No questions. So I guess this moment, consent calendar is up for a motion.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been first and seconded. Roll call vote.
Director Roberts,
Aye.
Director McMillan,
Yes.
Director Avila,
Aye.
and Director Queenie.
Consent calendar passes. On to the action items with the resolution of number 2083.
Good evening, directors. So tonight we're going to be looking at Resolution 2083 to authorize the signing of those documents. This is the last step before the board, before we move forward with the execution of these documents. This revolving loan agreement is a three-party agreement between Wells Fargo, PFA, and the district. So we are looking for the district to authorize the execution of these documents. The PFA has already authorized the execution. So tonight, we're just looking for the approval of the resolution 2083, authorizing the execution of the revolving credit agreement, fee and interest agreement, and the installment purchase agreement. The final execution of these documents are expected to be on February 20th, when the loan is finalized. And I'm available for any questions.
As an action item, do we have any public interested in this item?
There are no raised hands online.
Okay. And any discussion from the board? We've seen all this before, so
Seen it several times.
motion is in order.
I'll make the motion to adopt resolution 2083, authorizing proceedings and agreements relating to the financing of certain improvements, approving the execution of documents by the Calleguas Las Virgenes Public Finance Authority, and authorizing official actions.
Second.
Motion's been first and seconded. Roll call vote.
Director Roberts.
Aye.
Director McMillan,
Yes.
Director Avila,
Aye.
and Director Queenie.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And on to reports. We're going to go to 7A1 and we will go to the speakers. Now.
Mr. President, I'd be happy to wait until after the presentation. If you prefer that. I understand you have guests here tonight to do the climate adaptation management plan for water. And if I may, I'd like to reserve until after they speak. Of course, it's chair's prerogative.
Sense to me.
Keep.
Presentation. Huh? Okay. So we will turn to our Metropolitan Water District representative, Jacqueline McMillan, and fill us in or introduce.
Now, this is a very special night for us tonight. This is the first time we've had the general manager and our chair come and speak to us about some really important projects that we have ongoing. I think we're at an historic place here in Metropolitan and how we're trying to find ways to move forward so we don't encounter the cutbacks that we did in 2022. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Henry to introduce our guests.
Yes, thank you, Director McMillan, Henry Gromlich, Associate General Manager, Calleguas. It's a great pleasure today to have three distinguished guests from Metropolitan. We have Board Chair Adon Ortega, Metropolitan General Manager Adele Hush-Khalil, and Chief Executive Officer, Assistant General Manager Devin Padier. Since Chair Ortega has become chair, he's brought a new energy, I would say, into the board. And in concert with General Manager and the Chief Executive Officer, they've embarked upon an ambitious climate adaptation management plan. as well as addressing longstanding issues that were revealed by the 2022 drought. So without further ado, I believe that it is Chair Ortega that is going to lead off, and I will leave it to you to take it from there. Welcome, Chair Ortega.
Thank you. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, President Quady, for hosting this, and our representative or your representative to the Metropolitan Board, Jackie McMillan, who I share almost a 30-year history with. First, when I was a member agency official at West and Central Basin, then as a colleague at Metropolitan, and it's my greatest pleasure to now have her at my side as a member of the board. Also, I want to greet Christine McCaffrey, who I've known for a long time as well. I had the pleasure of working with her during the construction of the Wainimi outfall replacement program many, many years ago. And so thanks, Calleguas, for the opportunity back then, and it's great to see you at the helm, Christine. I also I'm going to make an announcement today. I'm currently the chair of the what they call the Los Angeles Gateway Caucus, which represents the cities and the member agencies in the main Los Angeles basin. I just drove from the city of San Fernando, which I represent, which is the poorest member of Metropolitan. It only took me 36 minutes to get here. And so Director McMillan, I'm going to start attending the Northern Caucus meetings.
Cool.
So thank you. So as board chair, I come to you at a time when Metropolitan faces enormous pressure to reduce reliance on the Colorado River, with almost real-time results in the form of higher lake elevation levels at Lake Mead. That's our burden. In the current water year, for example, we have left over 450,000 acre-feet of water at Lake Mead through investments in conservation and water supply offsets. That's a tremendous amount of water, which is about half of what we used to take before we had our initial reduction in 2003, when we lost half of our Colorado River allocation as a result of the modification settlement agreement. These investments are being made at a time when we face steeply declining water consumption and associated declining water sales revenue. That's not just our problem. That's our problem throughout the water supply chain. But please don't get me wrong. I don't think that this is a failure. It demonstrates that the last 25-year planning horizon saw real integrated resources planning with an emphasis on local projects indeed worked. Our demands have steeply declined, and that's a credit to the residents of Southern California, to our member agencies that embrace the ethic of conservation and supply demand management. In fact, it is a paradox of our time that in 2022, we faced the crisis in your area because we could not move our stored supplies from Diamond Valley Lake in Hemet up here after the state reduced our state water project allocation below 20%. Now, the reason I mentioned 20% is that up until 2022, 20% reductions in the state water project was considered the worst case scenario. But the paradox is in the fact that we are effectively in storage conditions with only a 30% allocation. So the delta between crisis and plenty is very narrow. Last year, for example, with over 100% plus of the state allocation, we ran out of storage capacity in our system, prompting the need to increase our future groundwater storage opportunities. That's why we're engaged in our climate adaptation master planning process, because there's a series of paradoxes that I could get through in the discussion that means that we're going to have to adapt, and we're going to have to do things in a different way, which is why we have a different sort of general manager at Metropolitan, Mr. Adel Hadji Khalil. He comes at a time that's been described as a Mulholland moment. Just think about it. When the pioneers came to the West, what did they find here? They found climate change. This was a different climate than they were used to. So what did they do? They built aqueducts where once they used to depend on rivers back home. And they brought the bounty of agriculture, which led to the California that we have today. this was a sparsely populated land where you could do things like that. Today, in Southern California, there's 19 million of us. And yet again, now we find changed climate conditions. And we're going to have to adapt. And we're going to have to be thinking like the pioneers, except that it's a lot more crowded around here these days. I want to get into the approach to the Delta, and I want to begin by thanking Director McMillan for taking the helm of our Bay Delta Ad Hoc Committee. At Metropolitan, if you look through our history of governance, the coveted positions used to be on the board to be the chair of a standing committee that is part of the executive committee. But if you look at the last year in particular, and if you look back at the QSA period when ad hoc committees were in fact in action at Metropolitan, that's where a lot of the action's taking place. And I really want to thank Calleguas for stepping up. You know, we had the Delta counties over 2 weeks ago, and your whole staff got into the act. We had a very, what some people call groundbreaking forum, a roundtable forum with supervisors from the 5 Delta counties that in the past were not our friends and would have been perhaps somewhat compromised being seen with the likes of us, especially over a 3-day period. So thank you, Director McMillan, for everything you've done to bring that partnership forward. I want to get to the bottom line of what's at stake and how we may have to move forward in the Delta. As we consider investments in the Bay Delta, there are some factors we need to think about. For example, as mentioned about the Colorado River, we need investments in projects that will yield fast results. We're with the burden of showing near real-time increases in the elevation of Lake Mead. Let me suggest that the lawsuits in the Delta over Delta conveyance, the water quality control plan, and the voluntary agreements may take decades to resolve. Agencies in the Central Valley, some rely on the San Joaquin River, that once were hesitant to involve Metropolitan in their groundwater basins, are now asking us to consider those very investments as a hedge against subsidence from groundwater pumping as the Sustainable Groundwater Act goes into enforcement. Can these provide opportunities south of the Delta as we weigh the risk of more delay and impasse in the Delta? So what kind of opportunities are those? Those are opportunities for conservation, farm conservation, like we do in the Imperial Valley and the Palo Verde Valley, and groundwater storage, where we can reserve supplies just south of the Delta, but north of us, where they won't evaporate. Another question, will the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation help us defray costs on projects such as Sites Reservoir to see improvements in the Colorado River? Some of you might remember that during the QSA discussions in 2003, when there was any suggestion that Metropolitan might turn to the Delta to replace the Colorado River supplies that we had lost, that we would turn to the Delta. And we had broad opposition to that notion. Well, guess what? People are now saying it's all of the above. You know, one thing impacts the other. Well, Arizona and Nevada's continued interest in our Pure Water SoCal project, where they're providing some funding for planning, also help us with the supply certainty in the Delta. And here's one. What has increased water use efficiency in our region yielded us in storage supplies that we would not otherwise have? So for example, when our last general manager was leaving, we had about, 2.3 million acre feet of water in storage. He estimated at the time that about 700,000 to 1 million acre feet of that was there because of reduced demands. What does that mean? How do you think about that water, given that it's your customers that help to save that water? And does that provide us opportunities to generate revenue, both to our member agencies and ourselves? This is a long way of saying that in the present, the issues related to the Colorado River, the Bay Delta, local supplies, they're all interwoven like never before. The goal of our Climate Adaptation Master Plan for Water, which we call Camp for Water, is to unite and fortify Southern California in this changed environment by strategically integrating the management in the dynamics I just described with our member agencies, and this is without precedent. Climate change is challenging us in our water systems even sooner than our modeling projected. We must act now to adapt, to make smart, effective investments in new water supply strategies, storage, and ways to move water, all as water consumption and sales revenue are steeply declining. I would like to suggest that the test of our time is whether the financial challenges and the measure of regional equity across Southern California with the changed climate will strengthen us or leave each member agency on its own. I would now like to turn this over to Adel Khalil to talk about the current supply conditions. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Chair Ortega, and it's an honor to be here with you, with the board, the full board of Calleguas, but also the staff and the partner players, the cities that you serve are critical to our agency, but also Las Virgenes board and staff and their member agencies. We have great relationship with the staff. And I have personally enjoyed working with Tony Goff and Henry Gramlich. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to congratulate Tony on his retirement and thank him for his service. But also I want to congratulate Christine McCaffrey for her new appointment. I think you really hit it hard and hit it right on by providing continuity. And we're very honored to work with you as you and I talk on the phone. I look forward to your leadership as we, as general managers, come together to really shape the future of this region. I have regular meetings with our member agency managers, but for the last few months, I've been having just a meeting with just the GMs to really strategize about how we move forward and making sure that every voice is heard and every input is given, that we're all working in partnership, because that's what the essence of Metropolitan is. I want to also acknowledge our Director McMillan for her leadership, and as the chair mentioned, leading the board's ad hoc committee on the Bay Delta and leading the efforts with Ian. Thank you, Ian, for congratulations again, and thank you for the discussion with the farmers of this area and having the real dialogue that farmers here need water as the farmers up in the Delta, and that was an interesting dialogue. But thank you for your leadership on this. In the past few days, we've seen the change. We've seen what we have in terms of rain. It's still raining right now outside. It is that we are going to continue to face weather whiplash associated with climate change. The dramatic swings from severe extended droughts to record-setting wet seasons is unsettling. And that shows the challenges that we are facing ahead. Chair Ortega mentioned there is no question that climate change is here and putting mounting pressures on the year-to-year management of our water supplies. The 2020, 2021, and 2022 dry years highlighted vulnerabilities in our system and reinforced the need to build water resiliency that adapts to the climate whiplash for our members, especially for our state water-dependent areas, including Calleguas and its members and purveyors and communities. Calleguas was among 6 metropolitan member agencies facing extraordinary emergency water use restrictions. Metropolitan has taken extraordinary actions to address the system deficiency. We work closely with you and your team and the other agencies in the region to ensure that we are prepared for a next drought that will sure come as part of this climate whiplash. We left no stone unturned to look for options and changes to shore up our supplies for the region and your service area. Metropolitan's board adopted a resolution in August 2022 to respond to your concerns that were uncovered in the state water project dependent areas. As you will hear in detail from our executive officer, Devin Aparie, we have responded to shore our supplies to the state water dependent areas and develop an action plan including near-term, mid-term, and long-term actions. If another drought similar to what we had here in 2020, 21, and 22, we will not have to resort to the drastic actions we had to take in 2022. Our near-term projects are either completed or in construction. Our capital improvement program will be updated with the midterm actions. Our climate adaptation master planning effort that the chair referred to, the climate adaptation master plan for water, is underway and will analyze long-term actions. We replumbed our system to reduce our dependence on a state water project for the eastern agencies to make more water available to the western agencies. We prioritize our operation to maximize storage to provide access to the state water dependent areas. In 2023, during the record rains, we prioritize all storage to serve the western region first. We added new storage in Lancaster, known as the Antelope Valley Kern Storage, AVAC, which is equivalent to about 300,000 acre feet of storage. And you can take out 70,000 acre feet a year out of it. We've initiated a robust process for analyzing our system's reliability and resiliency and identifying investments needed under climate change scenarios. Also, having the ability to pay for these investments, as the chair mentioned, is critical to building our resiliency. The old model, volumetric and commodity-based pricing, does not work in the future, as we are reducing our water use while increasing our resiliency investments. We are evaluating new business model at Met that is resilient, fair, equitable, and affordable, that recognizes it's a new normal. The benefit of being part of Metropolitan is the co-op that Met offers, where decisions require a consensus. No single entity can control the outcome of a decision. Projects must be deemed worthy by a majority of the board to warrant investments. That doesn't change under the Camp for Water process. While we are engaging our GMs at the table as part of the task force, the board at the end have to vote on these investments. Metropolitan is built around the idea of interdependence, where the supply in one area benefits the whole by freeing up the region's supply. All member agencies benefit from the security of belonging to Metropolitan. We'll be exploring options to change our business model in the Camp for Water process to ensure we can invest in resiliency to benefit everyone. But where do we stand today? Thanks to record level storage of 3.4 million acre feet, we're starting off this year in a stronger position than ever before. And just as we did when it began raining last year, we are prioritizing building our storage reserves for our state water dependent areas. First, that includes maximizing storage in St. Louis Reservoir. We are also expanding our cyclic storage programs with a new surplus water management program that will facilitate increased groundwater and surface water storage options if excess supplies are available. Conditions on the Colorado River are improving. The lake mean is 32 feet higher since the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Commissioner called on the 7 states to conserve 2 to 4 million acre feet through the interim guidelines, which gives us more room to negotiate long-term operations on the river. Federal funding has been key to our efforts so far, including more than $100 million Inflation Reduction Act funding to offset our ag to urban programs cost. And last week, we were in DC together advocating and working with Bureau of Reclamation, our representatives, to ensure that we continue to receive the funding we need to invest in the programs that we have in place. We have applied for another $420 million in funding for local projects and conservation programs across Southern California to help reduce our demands in the river. And I know I talked to Board Member Avila earlier and how important it is to reach out and all of us work together on advocating for funding both at the state and the federal level. Supplies on the state water project are looking better than ever before. While last week's snow survey showed snowpack of 52% of average, last week's storms raised the level to 65%, and we believe this week storms will bring it up closer to normal. This is likely to raise our current allocation above the 10% Department of Water Resources announced in January. We look forward to seeing something in March that looks on a higher level. As the chair talked about, if we approach 30% allocation, we'll be putting more water in storage. As a result, we're actively looking for partners within the service area, and we're having meetings regularly with our groundwater basin masters to ensure there's ways we can put water in. And also talking to the other partners across the state to find ways that we can store water in different places as we are looking for ways to store water when we have it so we can use it when we don't have that water during dry conditions, similar to what we've done in the Antelope Valley Kern project. In summary, we have come a long way since 2022. If the same conditions occurred again today as it did in 2020 through 2022, we would have sufficient water to supply your agencies without drastic actions as we did in 2022. But the work does not stop. We need to continue working through building resilience. Metropolitan is diversifying our water supply portfolio with increasing conservation, reuse, storage, and enhanced conveyance. This is being evaluated as part of the camp for water process. We're also analyzing a myriad of projects to address current gaps in our delivery capabilities to the state water dependent areas, including Calleguas. Our immediate focus has been to increase pumping and pipeline capacity to move more supplies east to west in our system. Long-term, we are studying and analyzing a number of options to ensure adequate supplies for our region, including the western part of our service area. There are more strategic investments needed to better serve you and serve the entire region to ensure safe, reliable water for everyone with no one left behind. This is our commitment to you and your communities as we do it for every member agencies in our 26 member agencies. You're going to hear details right now from Devin Aparier, who is our executive officer, that will walk you in details through the action plan that we've taken since 2022 to help us get ready for the next drought. So Devin.
Thank you, Adele. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. The question before me is to kind of get you a sense of how we're responding. What does our progress look like in attacking this problem? So we have a few slides to share with you. I think we can start trying to figure out where to point this. Here we go. Thank you. With the call to action, this is the resolution that our board adopted in August of 22. Director McMillan, our chairman, and the general manager all referred to this. At a staff level, we refer to this as our call to action. And it really established a board resolution that was telling us that we would work towards establishing equitable access for all of our agencies to our supplies, our storage, everything that we have to be able to provide equivalent access and reliability to our agencies. So coming from that, I wanted to share that this is not unusual given our history. When you take a look at Metropolitan's past, we always learn from the crises that the water industry faces, and it puts us on different types of investment campaigns. Sometimes it's more dollars, other times it's more policies that are adopted. But this gives you a sense of the way that that has evolved over the decades. On the left of this graphic, there is what used to be the historic drought of record from 87 to 91, 92. And coming out of that drought, it set us on a planning path that led to the development of major infrastructure that we all benefit from today. Diamond Valley Lake, many of our banking programs, the initial development of the conservation programs that our chair referred to, and our local resources program sprung out of that time frame and the work that followed. In the early 2000s, our chair also talked about the quantification settlement agreement and what ended up being a reduction in our supplies, where our supplies were cut in half, and we worked to rebuild it under that framework with transfers and exchanges that were put in place to be able to refill the aqueduct system. You might recall that in the 2006-07 timeframe, there was a major legal decision that came out that affected the State Water Project buyouts that they operated under. It was referred to as the Wanger decision at the time. The projections were that it would roughly reduce State Water Project supplies by a third. And that set us on a path with investments in our Delta programs and a series of improvements there. The point being that we've done this over time, and each time we've redoubled our efforts and invested to be able to provide a greater degree of reliability. So if you look at where we are with the 2022 drought, I'm going to talk to you about a number of things, some of which have already been mentioned, that represent this commitment and a response that will pave a path for us being much more reliable in the future and without disparate reliability in our service area like what we experienced, particularly in 2022. These projects here are projects that are already in either construction or various stages of planning. And you also heard about the Camp for Water process. I'll point out that some of these projects, as we go through the discussion, will be evaluated through that Camp for Water process that our board is working through right now. It's important to note that, and it's been mentioned already, that the condition that we faced in this most recent drought was exacerbated by a few things. The first right out the gate is that the experience we had on the State Water Project was worse than the planning criteria that DWR had given us. In fact, the worst drought that we had seen before was the 2013 to 15 drought. And the supplies that we got in 2020 through 22 were half of what that previous worst drought was. But that wasn't the end of it. Going into that drought sequence, we saw a Castaic Lake, which is right near your backyard here, that was drawn down artificially by the Department of Water Resources because they were doing work on the outlet tower at the lake. DWR, in working with them since then, has committed that they will be coordinating with us as the primary contractor here in Southern California to avoid that type of planning impact when they're doing work on projects in the future. The other thing that I wanted to acknowledge is that going right into this drought, a key program that we had developed that was supposed to help provide reliability, our Arvin Basin groundwater storage program. We discovered a contaminant in that program that effectively shut that program down. And so we weren't able to produce the supply from that program during that period. That was about 75,000 acre feet a year of production that was not online as a result of TCP 123 discovery in that program. We're currently working through a recommendation with our board that would recover that capacity, deal with the treatment in that program, and allow us to start producing 75,000 acre feet a year again. As a response and a call to action, we sat down with your team, and I want to thank your team, your executive team here, for engaging with us, along with the leadership at the other State Water Project dependent agencies. There are 6 of them, across dozens of meetings over the last 18 months, asking ourselves a series of questions, things like, it's going to take a little while to put some of these physical solutions in place. Did we operate as efficiently as we could have? Can we reoperate our system to provide better benefits if we get hit with the same thing? The answer is yes, and I'll show you that. The next question was, how could some of these near-term infrastructure solutions help? And that has led us to develop a portfolio in response to that call to action of infrastructure changes that we know will help. What if that next drought that gets us is not like the 20 to 22 drought? What if it's worse than that? Finally, in the face of potentially worse drought, what kind of long-term investments can we make that will improve the condition? So our strategy, it's already been mentioned here, immediate actions. What are the things that we could do immediately right off the bat that would provide help? Those are largely operational, reoperation of our system. In the near term, we've already started on an investment campaign, and I'll show you how a series of projects is improving the reliability across the district, but specific to the State Water Project dependent areas. And then ongoing, we've got a number of things that we're working through our Camp for Water process. These are not investments we're making immediately, but they're being evaluated through that process that would further improve our reliability. So let's perhaps get into some of the details about what these investments look like. The first thing is we've already put in ground and made investments that would change the game if we get hit with the exact same drought. Recall that the Gregg Avenue pump station, when it was originally built, was meant for intermittent use. It wasn't meant for long-term, throughout the year pumping. We've completely rebuilt the Gregg Avenue pump station. Now, 55 cubic feet per second can be pumped month after month. I suppose, I know some of you have been to that facility. I suspect that many of you in the audience have been there. That investment came online in the middle of this drought, but we now have it in place, and we know going forward, it will work for us. Similarly, and I'll show you a graphic of how this works, we're able to take another part of our service area that is on the east side of our system, wholly dependent on State Water Project supplies, and pump back water from Diamond Valley Lake up to that treatment plant. It's the Mills treatment plants, taking it completely off of the State Water Project system. We did that in 2022. We now have the capacity to do that on a regular basis. And part of what we've learned now that we're able to do that is If we see the beginning of a new drought where we're in balance, we'll be able to pull that trigger earlier, thus preserving state water project for the other areas that need it and take that facility off of the state water project system. We have an ongoing cost offset program that encourages folks to be able to shift their connections away from state water project supplies where they have other alternatives. And our general manager mentioned the AVEC storage program. It's now online, although I would say partially online. We're still continuing that investment. It should be fully online at the end of 2026, early 2027. But in fact, we were able to take advantage of it a bit last year and store some water in that program, and we'll be able to return it. In terms of reoperating our system, the short story here is we found that we can keep the storage that is accessible to the state water project portion of our service area higher for a longer period of time. San Luis Reservoir, Castaic Lake, parts of the service area that DVL can serve right now. We can preserve that surface storage in a way that we were not able to do before. The way that we do that is earlier in droughts, we start pulling from our state water project banking programs, the groundwater programs that have limited ability to produce. So you start pulling from those programs earlier. You're literally pulling from those programs to fill surface storage. In the past, we didn't do that. We would pull to meet demands. So an example that I would give you is if this year were to remain at 10% allocation, it's not going to. We know that it'll go up, but if it had stayed at a 10% allocation, we'd be pulling from those programs this year to ensure that our surface storage remains full so that we're able to deliver that water later into a drought. Similarly, we would pull the trigger on those pump back programs that I had mentioned earlier, keeping things like state water project carryover, Castaic and Diamond Valley Lake fuller for longer. In terms of projects, this graphic gives you a sense of projects that are under implementation right now and projects that are soon to be added to our CIP. The projects that are under implementation right now start on the right side of the graphic. And we use this term DVL or Diamond Valley Lake to Rialto delivery. It's a series of 4 projects. What that shows you on the graphic is in green. We will be able to utilize those projects to pump water from the Colorado River or Diamond Valley Lake up to the east side of our system. That portion of our system no longer needs state water project supply as a result of those projects. They'll be completed in the 2026 to 27 timeframe. The total cost of those projects is on the order of $100 million. We have been able to receive some state funding that will be helping with that. The lower section of projects that are to be added to the CIP, those projects will be part of an action we're bringing to our board. The first action is in March and the second action is in April. And you can see the timeline associated with completing those projects. These are projects that are on the west side of the system. You may be aware that we are looking at a pump back system that would bring water up our Sepulveda feeder to you all on the west side. I'll show you in a follow-on graphic. That the first phase of that pump back system is already in our CIP and is in design right now. With these future facilities that are already in our CIP, not the ones to be added, but that are already in our CIP, we will have systems in place where we can take the full east side of our system off of the state water project. In a future drought, we will not need to deliver state water projects to the east side of the system. That then allows our groundwater banking programs, San Luis carryover storage, our state water project allocation to all come here to the west side of our system. In addition to that, I mentioned the Sepulveda pump back system. What this does, if you follow these red arrows, the central part of our system using this future facility would be pumping back water similar to the way the Gregg Avenue pump station works, up to the west side, the opposite way that it currently flows from our Jensen treatment plant. The first phase of that project, our board has already approved, and it was a phase at 30 cubic feet per second. The reason the first phase was smaller is because there's another thing that we have to do to expand that pump back system. And that is we have to reline the Sepulveda feeder with a steel liner. That line right now is what's known as pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe. It is prone to failure. We've experienced a failure of that type of line in the past, and we stood up a program to reline all of that type of pipe in our system. The challenging thing with this pump back structure is it increases the pressure in that pipeline in a way where we have to reline that pipe first, and then we'll be able to come back and do the second phase. The second phase will be added to the design for the second phase will be added to our CIP I mentioned here in the March, April timeframe. That's one of the actions that will be coming to our board. I also want you to know that because the lining is critical to be able to do that, we've reordered our capital program and we have prioritized that line. In fact, it was going to be more than 10 years out that we would be relining it. It is now part of our 10-year CIP that the board has already approved, and we'll be reapproving a new 10-year CIP here in the springtime, in the April timeframe, and it is also part of that CIP proposal. Once we are finished with the design for this second phase of the Sepulveda pump back, a full 160 cubic feet per second, it will then be analyzed in our Camp for Water process for that final decision moving forward. But we'll have all the information that comes through the design. We'll know exactly what the cost will look like. I had mentioned to you the east side projects were about $100 million. I should go back to this. The various projects here on the west side, the Sepulveda lining, freeing up some constraints we have in our central pool to be able to get more water to that pump back system. All of that work, including the relining of that line, are approximately $1.4 billion. So you can see that we are committing to projects that represent significant improvements in reliability at a cost, and we're committed to following through to make this happen. The key is that with that type of a system, our analysis shows that we can not only make it through a drought similar to what we saw in 2020 through 2022, but we'll be able to make it through a more extreme drought. To give you a sense, what those systems would do is allow 150,000 acre feet of water that's Colorado water or Diamond Valley Lake water to move up to the west side in a way that it's not able to do now. That's if we were operating the system for a full year without break. The constraint then moves to, do you have enough supply available? It's not about whether you're able to move water around the system. It's a question of whether you have enough supply. And frankly, we're on another track working on the Pure Water Southern California program. We're in the environmental process for that program, but that program, when completed, would be bringing yet another supply into the mix that would allow us to have enough water to move up to the west side. It doesn't stop there. I had mentioned that there are other things that we're looking at through our Camp for Water process and that analysis that would allow us to meet even greater reductions and challenges in a drought sequence. This just gives you a sense of some of those. I'll call your attention to the top one. There is our Antelope Valley East Kern program that just came online last year. We're looking at a physical connection that would bring that water to the West Branch, so that groundwater program is 280,000 acre feet of storage that we're bringing online there, but have direct access to the West Branch and be able to feed you here. Our general manager also mentioned the East-West Regional Conveyance Program. What you see in this graphic here is one of the concepts that we're looking at is relining the portion of our system where the Gregg Avenue pump back is, with yet a second pipe that would go through that area. Then you could expand a pumping facility like Gregg Avenue and allow more conveyance from the east to the west. That's one of the concepts we're looking at. This next graphic shows you yet another concept, which is a larger east-west conveyance line that would be raw water moving east to west in some scenarios. An interesting thing about this is it could also, in the wetter year types, move more state water project from the west to the east. So it would be a bi-directional raw water pipeline. These are the kinds of concepts that we're looking at. In fact, we'll be including feasibility analysis in our CIP proposal that will be coming to the board to be able to dig deeper on what those opportunities look like and what they could yield. And then they would be analyzed through our Camp for Water process. I just mentioned, these are some of those projects I know that are on your radar screen that will be included in that process here. Planning and conceptual design being included in our CIP both in March and April. So next steps, I had mentioned the action item. We are bringing an action item to our engineering and operations committee and then ultimately to the board in the March timeframe. That action item would actually create a brand new CIP program. Our CIP, when you think of it, is $600 million over 2 years, hundreds of projects, but they all fit into 12 different programs. This would add a 13th program that is a drought mitigation portfolio to meet that call to action that the board had asked us to follow through with in August of 2022. So it would stand up a new program, and that program will house these projects that I had shared with you here today. And obviously these projects, many of them are already underway, but some of them, like the east-west conveyance, will be doing that feasibility work, and then it would be analyzed through the Camp for Water process that our chair and our general manager talked about a little bit earlier. So bottom line, we've come a long way. We've got recent system upgrades and investments that are already underway that would allow us to get through the drought that we recently experienced if we relived it with no rationing. We've also got additional things that are being added to our CIP that will allow us to avoid geographic specific rationing like we experienced there, where only 6 of our agencies were affected. So that will not be part of our future. And we have yet additional supplies and conveyance that is going to be analyzed under our Camp for Water process with the goal of frankly not having to ration again forward. With that, thank you very much. And
So President Quady, what Devin has just described is that Metropolitan, with the help of your staff and the staff at Las Virgenes and our other member agencies, we're imagining a new class of planning and infrastructure. You know, this occasion is indeed remarkable because we're having this kind of conversation, even as the torrents have fallen outside in the last few days. We're not sitting on our laurels thinking that history will not repeat itself or that we have every scenario figured out. In our planning, the temptation is to define regional equity as building every project each member agency wants right now. I'd like to suggest that it would be synonymous to putting all of our eggs in the proverbial basket. So we must be smarter, strategic, and united, lest each of us go our own way, a less certain future. So, Mr. President, thank you very much for allowing us to make these presentations.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Jackie.
No, this is a very exciting time. Like I said, I was an employee for 31 years, and at that time we took on our biggest project yet, and that was the building of DBL and the inland feeder that would feed it. And it was an exciting time back then, and it was a lot of work. But since then, our CIP programs has really been just maintenance and rehabilitation. So this is the first time I've seen this come forward with a whole host of brand new projects that's going to actually connect our system, make us more resilient and reliable. It's going to take money. And some of these projects will take time, like we probably won't see benefit from the pure water until 2040. But these other near-term and shorter, long-term projects for the west side will actually make us sustainable. So much so that Chairman Ortega, who pointed out to me, you know, those 30 years ago, when if we had a 40% allocation off the state water project, we'd be in a drought. That's not the case now. It's a 20% allocation, and especially with these projects coming online. And go back to the January 23rd report for the Subcommittee on Pure Water, Southern California, and you can go back and see a lot more of the details that Devin just presented to you. And what these projects will allow us to do is not just sustain a 3-year drought, but a 4-year drought. So we are making some really substantial steps, and we just all need to be in this lockstep together and support what they're doing, what we're doing here locally as well. And just let's keep the needle moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Do you want to wrap?
Sure. And then we'll take public comment afterwards. All right, sounds good. Thank you. So I'd like to thank Chair Ortega, General Manager Haj Khalil, Executive Officer Upadhyay for joining us tonight. Your presentations remarks were informative and the hard work performed to date is much appreciated. Metropolitan's efforts at operational changes and near-term projects are very much appreciated. They will enable us to start from a much better place than we did in 2022. And as identified by Metropolitan, longer-term solutions will be part of the camp process and will involve difficult decisions on trade-offs between cost and reliability in the face of climate uncertainty. One of those decisions will involve future investment in improving Delta conveyance. Director McMillan's initiative with the Delta County Supervisors and Chair Ortega's vision, they mark a new era finding common ground in the Delta. We will be interested to see how the state's cost benefit analysis on Delta conveyance compares to other options under consideration in camp to find cost-effective reliability solutions. In the final analysis, our decisions on how best to achieve the board's new model for resilience must be driven by the value proposition we provide our ratepayers. Just as MET is exploring a new class of infrastructure and investment, the local supply alternatives and regional partnerships we are developing as part of our water resources implementation strategy will provide your board with options to find the highest value for our ratepayers' dollars. We look forward to continued partnership opportunities with Metropolitan to help drive the innovation, creative approaches, and collaboration that we all need for this new era.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments. Okay, well, with that, we'll go to the public comment section and welcome me Trembling, Camarillo.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Thank you, members of Metropolitan. It's a privilege to be here. My name is Tony Tremblay. I'm a council member and current mayor for the city of Camarillo. So I'm privileged to represent 70,000 residents of that. I believe you termed it a disparate reliability area. And I don't want to go back and relitigate everything we went through in 2022, but you know that our city has been rather outspoken about this issue for quite a bit of time. First thing, I have a couple of things that I want to say. First of all, I sincerely appreciate the effort of Metropolitan staff, the Calleguas staff, the Las Virgenes staff, and other member agencies working to take corrective action, as the executive officer has spelled out, ever since the issue was brought to the Metropolitan Water District Board during the teeth of the drought, resulting in the August 22 resolution by the MWD board, and I welcome that. That said, it's been about 18 months. Good things take time, but it's been about 18 months since the Metropolitan Board adopted that resolution, mandating that all of the member areas within Metropolitan, including our city of Camarillo, which is within your district, receive equivalent water supply reliability. So that clock is ticking. And the second message is that we are closely monitoring what Metropolitan is doing. We appreciate the meetings that we've had with Metropolitan staff, city staff has had, and we are monitoring the commitments and we are monitoring the fulfillment of those commitments. And by the way, as a retailer, as a purveyor, we hear from the residents first. I don't think they call Calleguas. I think they call the city. They call your purveyors. So we're the ones who get to talk to our residents. I do have a concern on one item, and I'm hoping for some clarity, perhaps that the board might ask the representatives from Metropolitan. The Metropolitan subcommittee that I think Director McMillan referred to received a presentation on January 23. And it discussed the Sepulveda feeder phase 1, as well as the Sepulveda feeder phase 2, the phase 1 being the planned board action and anticipated completion in 2026 for up to 60 CFS. And that same project phase 2 with an estimated completion date of 2032, 8 years from now. And of course, we know drought will return at some point. So it's a long ways from now, but that ultimate capacity is we also on the board of 160 CFS. I think it's fair to say that those two steps by themselves are not sufficient. There's more to be done. And in this committee PowerPoint done on January 23, there were a number of other projects that were presented to Metropolitan's committee to try to fill this gap to make sure we never go back to where we went before. And I'm all in favor of water conservation. I'm a very strong proponent, but we don't want to be second class. We don't want to continue being second class citizens, as the city of Camarillo has said repeatedly. over the last couple of years. Question is this, and it equates to slide 12 that the executive officer presented tonight. It's the same as slide 14 in the January 23 presentation, indicates that what we read it to say was that the future implementation of the phase 2 project would be pending a camp for water evaluation. That to me is very conditional language. In other words, it may happen, it may not happen. And the proposed biennial budget that you'll have coming before your board, including the 10-year proposed CIP. I couldn't sit all the way through. It was only 993 pages. That's going to be heard by the board on February 13. It doesn't appear clear on that on the phase 2 project. Slide 14 in the January 23 project indicated that the implementation would be pending. Slide 2 and slide 2 said that the current CIP would be amended to include this project. But I think there's some confusion as to whether or not that project is going to go in either A, the current CIP, capital investment plan, or B, and as amended, or a new capital investment plan. So I'm hoping for some clarity from the metropolitan representatives here. I'm also hoping for some clarity, Mr. President and members of the board, with respect to what is the specific commitment to follow through on this phase 2 project. I understand it's being evaluated in light of Camp for Water, but we would like to see commitments on this. So those are my questions, and my questions with respect to the clarity of the presentation, with respect to that project, and with respect to Metropolitan's actions. And so I'm hoping that you will ask those questions that I just phrased with the Metropolitan representatives so that they have a chance to respond and give us some more clarity. And I appreciate your time. And again, I appreciate the efforts that have been undertaken on this. They're deeply appreciated. You know, I come from, like I said, I'm privileged to represent 70,000 residents, many of whom ask, why did this happen? And I think you did a great job explaining why it happened in 2022. We don't want it to happen again. We no longer want to be second-class citizens in Metropolitan Water District, even though we've been paying the same rates. And this issue, to be fair, this issue has gone on since the early 1990s. So thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much to the Metropolitan senior staff who's here today. And I'm hoping for some clarity with respect to those questions.
Thank you for those comments.
Mr. Chair, it's okay to respond. So appreciate your leadership on this. And as you know, we always talk about, and this is a message that the chair and I and the staff say that no one left behind. You know, it's something that we need to adapt to, and you know, I think what you saw is a quick action and response on what we need to do. And you heard from Devin about what we have done to ensure this is not going to happen overnight, but we have things in place to ensure that what happened in 2022, 2020, 2022 will not happen again. By us prioritizing the storage, by us replumbing the system to move water away from the eastern part that used to come from the State Water Project. Now we're using Diamond Valley. By freeing some of that water, now we have maximum water available to the State Water Project. The discussion that the chair talked about with Director McMillan is we all know we have a lot of investment in ensuring that the water still continues to come through the Delta. And I know Delta conveyance is on the table, but is tied in litigation. So what we're doing right now is making sure that there is a lot of liability in the Delta, and that's a discussion that we're hoping that we do, that we want certainty there too. We are also on the issue of the Sepulveda feeder. Phase 1, we did actually progressive design build, which is the first project ever. As you know, when I came to Metropolitan, the first thing I asked the staff is, what are some of the tools to expedite delivery? And they said, we don't have the alternative delivery. I said, went to the state, got the legislation. In 9 months, we're able to get legislation. And the first project is this Sepulveda feeder using progressive design builds to get the 60 CFS. Phase 2 is coming into the CIP as a analysis design work. The actual investment of funding will be a decision that the board has to make through the analysis of the overall investments that we have made. this could be the priority project because it's an existing project, most probably. It's just lining it and getting the system in place. I think this is the right project to do. It's probably will receive high marks. If you look at the evaluated criteria we developed with the general managers and the board members that we're looking at how we evaluate projects, this will probably receive a high score. But we don't want to be ahead of the board and commit the board to something that they need to look at because our finances are so critical to implementing the projects. And you've seen the budget and we have really the drought. Although we've seen reduced water use, but we've seen reduced revenues. We need to have a new business model of resiliency, and we need your help to ensure that the way that we measure and bring revenue in based on water we sell is not how we're going to move forward. There needs to base investments across the entire region on how we invest in resiliency that benefits everyone. Whether you're buying water or not, it's beneficial to everyone. And then we create a system that we make available to charge you for water that can credit people for conservation the same way like everybody is, and then find creative way of how we move it. But the board has to look at the process of evaluating all these projects to ensure that we develop a portfolio of investment, but also at the same time, we're running a parallel system to evaluate the business model. Because right now, we can't afford the stuff that we want to do. Affordability is not there for us to do it. So a new way have to be done. And we are now looking at, so we don't delay it, we are working on a new business model that hoping to be done in the next 6 months as to bring to the board for deliberation over the next year. Hopefully we'll have a new business model that we can now say we have the revenue for sure. But also we're advocating for new ways to be creative on our funding. You know, the $100 million we got from the federal government to actually allocate our irrigation partnerships into the Bureau of Reclamation and have 100 million come back to us. There is a 420 million that we bring in from the feds under the Inflation Reduction Act that's going to help with local water supply and some of these resiliency projects. But more needs to be done. So I think we're committed. The first thing we wanted to do is how can we make sure that if we have the same thing happen again, that you're going to have the water you need. And I'm 100% sure. I mean, that's the direction IAF staff. I know that's the direction the chair and the board. And I haven't seen a board under leadership of Adan and Director Macmillan and many of the board members. They are engaged fully. They take this seriously. They are really focused, laser focused on our climate adaptation and resiliency. And we are saying this is for us is a critical moment in our time, but we need your help and support. You know, the biggest struggle I have when people tell me it's raining now, let's not worry about what we need to do. That's not real. That's not real. We know it's going to come back. We know we're going to have 3-4 years of a drought. It's going to come. And it's on us. And I would say us first and the collective if we don't find ways. And this board, this chair is laser focused. Our staff are laser focused on it. And, you know, and the meetings we've had, the GMs, whether it's Tony and Henry and David and now Christine are holding our feet to the fire. But there are partners with us on how we're going to do it. And we're going to be open, transparent, and we're going to be doing it. But the first thing we want to do is ensuring if another drought happened like 2022, we have the water available. And what Devin said critically is we can take the entire east side of the state water project off the state water project completely. Right now, by doing this replumbing that we have done, and now also we're maximizing storage. We're putting water in Antwerp Valley, $200 million investment in storage south of the Delta. That's a big deal. And phase 2 is coming. And Adan and the chair is talking to folks. We're talking to folks in different parts of the region to find, can we replicate the storage when we have water south of the Delta in different places that can benefit everyone? So, you know, we have the Urban Edison one that we're going to have treatment on. That's another push that we're doing. That's 75,000 acre feet. We're looking at opportunities, whether it's Westlands, Delta Mendota, Friant and others, trying to find out how we do it. We are actually on the market too, trying to find available water supply. The board is going to take action on Monday, Tuesday, to approve us, me as a general manager, to go out and secure some water available to us that we can put on the side that we can make available up to $50 million worth of water, right? So we can get across the board. You know, we covered as much as we can. But Mr. Mayor, I know how critical it was for you. I know the first meeting we had, when we had it with you, it was not easy. But I assured you at the time, and I know, at the time I said it's commitment that we have, and we are doing it, and we are serious about it. And you heard me talk about that. We are one. And no one left behind. That's what the chair stands for. That's what the board stands for. And we need to make sure we're here to serve everyone. And we're gonna continue pushing this. But your leadership at the board has been very active. I want to acknowledge the board members from both Calleguas and Las Virgenes, but also the managers and the staff. But this board chair and the board is laser focused.
May I add, if you'll allow me the time, Mr. President? What we're up against is bonding capacity. If you review our budget, you know we're up against an $8 billion limit. $8 billion for water would cost us the whole amount. This east-west connection, it could take up that whole bonding capacity. Forget about Delta Conveyance. We'd be on the hook for about $12 billion of that. The in-Delta solutions, we'd be on the hook for about another $4 billion. You know, I'm a homeowner, and every time something breaks, it costs $10,000. In this world, it costs $1 billion. And so the reason we're going through this exercise is because it's also an educational process. I think, Mayor, one of the things that you could do, very valuable to our effort, is that in your interactions with the other mayors of other cities, especially across Southern California, is to educate them about what you went through. And the fact that if we do not become holistic about the way we plan, it can happen to them too. And that's why, as Southern Californians, we have to stick together. That's why I said earlier, right now, in the current paradigm, the way we define interregional equity is that everybody gets the projects they want right now. If we did that, we'd be putting all of our eggs in one basket, because what if the scenarios with climate change turn out differently? You know, that's why we're calling it an adaptation plan. We know where our weakest link is, and you just defined it. And we have to fix it because we know it's there. But what about future weak links? We have to have the bonding capacity to be able to do this in an adaptive manner over the next 25 to 45 years. And we'll be able to do it as Southern California. We won't be able to do it if we stick to the old paradigm where an agency would say, well, if I can't get my project now, you know, I'm not going to support this. So these forums are especially helpful when people like you are here because you're hearing it. And hopefully as we go around the region and do these with other member agencies, we'll be telling your story. And maybe you can join us at some of those sessions. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
We'll go on to Eugene West.
Thank you, Chair Quady. I'm Gene West. I'm a board member of Camarosa Water District, one of the purveyors served by Calleguas. And first and foremost, I want to thank Calleguas' board and staff, as well as Las Virgenes' board and staff, for their leadership in pushing for the type of regional equity that Chair Ortega discussed. Because having been through this now for many years, I'm absolutely certain that the changes that folks from Metropolitan have talked about today would not have occurred without your advocacy. You know, these problems sat for 30 years unattended, and indeed the situation in 2020 to 2022 brought that circumstance into sharp relief, but it wasn't unknown and it wasn't attended to previously. Without your leadership, without your advocacy, we'd still be in that situation. Gentlemen from Met, I'm very much encouraged. All of my questions were answered by your presentation. I really appreciate that. And very much encouraged by the progress you've made. Going forward, my suggestion, I know in the service area that I represent, they're pretty sophisticated. And it's not just, it's a broad range of residential, industrial, and agricultural users, all of whom know more about their water business than I do, and know as much about supply as probably anybody in this room. And they're deeply affected by what occurred a couple of years ago and very concerned about what the future holds. I'm certainly encouraged to hear that Met has taken steps and made improvements so that it'll never happen again. But I'm not the only person that needs to hear that. And I'm not the appropriate, or frankly, the willing messenger. That has to come from you, and it has to go beyond this room. It has to get to those users in my district and in the other districts served by Met throughout the state water project dependent area. They don't know that. And as you move forward, as perhaps you must, with a different financing plan, unless the public knows that, unless the public hears that message, you have a hard time selling that. Having said that, thank you for the efforts. Thank you for the projects. We will look forward to seeing the program, the projects develop further. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments.
We do have one raised hand online, so if you could unmute Sherry Lima from Oxnard, so she can speak.
You should be able to unmute yourself now and speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Give us a second to get the volume up a little bit. We heard you very faintly. Okay, try again, Sherry.
I have never been known to be faint. So can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Sherry.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I appreciate the leadership from Met coming down. We all appreciate it. And your presentations were very interesting and informative and very helpful. I'm encouraged to hear much of what you've offered and much of the plans that are in the works. And we have a lot of faith in Christine and her team in leading Calleguas and in the Calleguas board in leading this effort to not only communicate with Met and be partners with Met, but also in finding some local solutions. My name is Shiri and I'm from the city of Oxnard. The city of Oxnard, as you may know, is the largest city in Ventura County. And we have almost a population of almost 250,000 people. And the city of Oxnard, first of all, I want to, on behalf of the residents, really underscore the comments that were made before me, both by Mayor Tremblay in Camarillo and by Chair West of the GMA. On the comments that Mayor Tremblay mentioned, Oxnard is deeply committed, and we made statements at the Met board meetings to the resiliency of the region and to the CIP projects at Met. And so that go to the resiliency of this region. And so we will continue to participate, and we are also looking for commitment from Met. And I was encouraged by your answers as well, that Met is so committed to building all of those connections. We also want to reiterate what Gene West just mentioned about the need for communication. This region, I do know that in Los Angeles, there are commercials on TV and there are ads on the highways and things like that. And this region does not hear a lot of the messaging from Met. And we hear, as the purveyor, a lot of frustration from the residents of Oxnard and from others that that Met, or they don't quite frankly know who it is, but that all of these people are sitting and not doing anything. And so you are doing something, and I would really encourage you to communicate that. On our part, Oxnard is very interested in the partnership component. That's why we have encouraged Calleguas so much with their local resources that they're looking at. And we too bring a lot to the table in terms of that partnership, and we want to bring more to the table. As you may know, Oxnard has currently a recycled water facility. We have capacity today to put out 7,000 acre feet a year, and we have capacity to expand that plant significantly, at least fourfold. We would love to partner with Met. We have been working with the folks at Calleguas to continue to give you the information that you might need to expand that facility. Oxnard is the end of the line, and we would love to not be dependent on you in a drought or in an emergency and be able to use our recycled water. But there's also things that we can do today that would be really, really effective. We have the capacity today to take your surplus water and inject it into a groundwater basin that is very, very low and could be used as storage today. So with the right policies in place, I mean, I'm very, very encouraged by the proposed surplus water management program that you all are reviewing. And with the right policies in place, we could be taking the water in this year or next year, the surplus water, and injecting it into the ground for use by this whole region. We have the injection capability today. We also would like to invest in the future of the region by injecting more of your water and injecting more of the recycled water so that there is a partnership and reliability, not just for Oxnard, but for the whole region. So we look forward to this partnership and are eager to keep working together. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to first of all, I want to introduce our Assistant GM over External Affairs and Communication, Dee Zink, who actually is a resident of your community here, and I want to acknowledge her. And she heard her team is leading the communication outreach, and we will continue. I think, Mr. Mayor, you said it, and I think Mr. West, you also said it. We need to do a better job of communicating, telling the story, and telling what we've done. So we will circle back and find better ways to communicate. We'll work with the team at Calleguas and Las Virgenes. And I very excited about the idea of Oxnard and partnership. So we'll work with Christina and her team on how we can look if there's opportunities on our ability to develop alternatives. I strongly believe our water management strategy is when you have water, you should find ways to store it, like savings account everywhere, and have access to it and move it around the system. That's the strategy. That's what we're doing right now, and we need to do more of it. And for a long time, I'll just say is my experience, since I've been here in Metropolitan, I'm coming around on my third year, but I was surprised that really the previous focus was about just imported water. And we have a huge shift in Metropolitan, and many of the groundwater basins had a goal. Number one goal is keep Met out of our business. And I think we cannot be, because we're partners. When we have water, we want to partner with you. So my team is convening the water masters and the agencies to talk about how we can use our excess water that we have and move it in the system and put it everywhere. But the condition is we put it everywhere. We have to be able to pull it out for the benefit, right? And I think there's a lot of work ahead of us. But look forward to having more development through Las Virgenes, through Calleguas, and our team with Oxnard. I know we're talking about a number of things. We'll follow through on it. But I know Dee and her team will start working with your communication team and everyone to ensure that we get the message out and ensure that people are hearing the message and addressing the issues and concerns and we'll work with you specifically on how we communicate. Thank you.
There's no other raised hands online.
Okay, so then I will thank you very much for being here and fielding the comments and appreciate.
How about your board?
Oh.
Oh,
Board has questions.
oh, we want to public speak.
Good evening, Wanda Moyer representing the city of Simi Valley, and I basically wanted to reiterate what was done. I'll make it brief. Like the city of Thousand Oaks, we're about 99% dependent. So our cities would not exist without state water project supplies. We did a tremendous job, 35% reduction of use, but if you don't have any supply, you can't conserve it. So the communication about your wonderful work is, I think, one of the things that I wanted to reiterate. That would help us tremendously, and I wanted to thank you for that.
Okay. Dr. Avila.
Thank you. So I want to say, thank you very much, Met staff, Adon, Del, Nevin. I appreciate everything you guys have done, to help so that we don't end up in this situation again. Thank you for our guests and your comments. I completely agree. When I joined the board here in 2020, I saw all of the slides. This was when we were going into the drought. Met had plenty of storage. When the drought hit, we quickly ran out, and we ended up with a very unequitable stake here in our region, especially Simi Valley being 100% dependent on water, state water project water. And with that, I'd like to just reiterate what they said. I'd like that resilience, going on Sherry's comments, going back to your map of your system. I'd like to see investment in our region, storage projects. I think it's important for Met to have a stake in our county. Going on that, I'd like to thank Adele, who's assigned one of his staff members to be a member at AWA to represent and collaborate with our purveyors. So thank you very much. And that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I'll just say one comment too, is given the ceiling on your budget, I just say darn, I'd love for the Delta conveyance to be up there. You've got too many things going on. So I'm sad to hear that, and this is part of it. So thank you again so much.
Very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll just add, I appreciate this, and everything I hear is very encouraging. I'm loving the collaboration and the incredible foresight for future resiliency, not just current resiliency. I think we're reaping the benefits of the foresight of generation before us. And it's nice to see that ball moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah, in some regions or some of our purveyors are more diverse than others in their portfolios. So it's a mix. Thank you.
We'd be happy to come back anytime, anywhere.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
On the monthly status report. Do what, or would you like to take a break?
Can I ask the board, does the board want to take a break?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, we'll convene the regular board meeting. Vegas. And we're next on to the monthly status report. So we step through this. If there's any questions from the board, they quickly, they can chime in. I'll step through the list. Questions there, water policy and strategy. Write-ups. Strategic policy implementation. Questions? Water resources. Any engineering questions? Operations and maintenance. 50. Miscellaneous operations and maintenance activities. Resources, risk management. Finance. Finance tonight. Information technology. I guess that's it. Good write-ups, folks. Okay, we'll go on to the financial report. December 2023. Dan Smith.
All right, so the financial statement report for through December 2023. To kind of go over the water revenues. Overall, we are still a little short on the budget through December. Probably going to be a little more short through January as we got a lot of rain, but through December, it's still looking pretty good. We're only short by about $500,000 from budget. That has little to do with the water sales, but we've made up a lot on the power generation, which is going to consider part of the water sales, as well as the pumping revenues and the LRP money that we've gotten in from the Camarillo water, or the desalination plant. So those have actually helped us recoup only up to a $500,000 shortfall on the budget. You can see by the water sales, we are about 1,600 acre feet at this point in December, short. We'll see what happens in January. Looking at the year-to-date expenses, the admin expenses will continue to have some savings. A lot of the savings is in outside services, consultants, and we haven't spent all of that turf money yet. I keep saying. So we have some savings there to the tune of about $3.5 million. Our taxes came in, so taxes and interest are a little higher than what we had budgeted, which is good. We are still waiting for part of our property taxes to come in, so that number will increase even more, probably in January, which gives us to about a $4 million operating income over what the budget was supposed to be. So we are looking good, and principal's right where, and interest are right where it's expected. So we were right there. So looking at some of the activities for the month, you can see that we are looking really good for the month of December. That has a lot to do with the property taxes coming in over budget, as well as us hitting our water sales estimates for that month in December. We were right on the estimates. And that just leads us to the $1.3 million extra that we did for the month of December, which then, because we also got the property taxes in, you can see that the cash increased by almost $4 million, $5 million. So that was a positive. So we've increased our cash as well. To go over some of the ratios, every one of these actually increased, except for the debt ratio, which went down, which is a good thing. We want that one to get lower. The current ratio is now 8.6. It was in the 7s last month. All of this really has to do with the influx of cash. That cash went up, so we have more current assets, so we're looking a lot stronger. Same thing with the quick ratio. We were in the 5s last month. Now we're at 6.47. The debt ratio did go down because the total assets increased, so that was good. The debt service coverage is now 2.17, which is well over 2. That's now going to slowly decline as we start spending some of the money on the expenses, but it brought us way back up to where we like to be, so we look really good right now. And the times interest earnings also increased by almost a point as we have all that extra cash on the for the earnings. It increased the earnings because property tax came in, so now we're at 5.67. And that's all I have for the financial statements. I do want to apologize. I didn't get the snapshot in the agenda packet. I was out of town and running into quite a few issues during this last week. But all is settled now, so, and I got it done in time for the presentation. That's all I have unless there's some additional questions.
Questions from board?
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
I appreciate, sorry.
Glad you were able to take care of everything.
Appreciate you vocalizing the last ratios. That way we know which direction we're going.
Sure.
Because otherwise you look and you go, oh, ew.
You know, maybe I'll start trying to figure out where we were last month, do a month-to-month comparison so you can kind of see.
Okay.
I make it a little easier.
Very helpful. Thank you. Okay, and we'll go on to comparison of Calleguas and Ledge, both priorities. Charlotte.
Good evening, President Coity, board members, staff, and guests. I do not have a formal presentation for you tonight, but just as a refresher, the board adopted Calleguas' legislative policy principles at the December 6th meeting. Metropolitan adopts similar principles every year, and they did so at their January 9th meeting. So this analysis really compares and contrasts where Metropolitan and Calleguas align. There are a number of areas in which they do. There are some areas of divergence. All of that is outlined in the memo and on the attached matrix. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Is there any areas that diverge that you think would impact us or our plans? Anything that stands out?
Yeah, so they have a high a stress on water affordability that, you know, is kind of a hot topic in the water industry. And they have several policy statements supporting efforts to provide safe and affordable water throughout their service area. So that may be one. And they, of course, talk about the Colorado River, which is probably not something that our board want to endeavor into, but maybe for consideration, something about affordability could be something for the future. But other than that, I think probably not at this time.
Yeah, I don't think that's really a big divergence there. I think our board is really focused on affordability and as well, so maybe not so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And yeah, it's a great way to compare that stuff. Very helpful. Thank you. Okay, general counsel report.
I have an exciting presentation on the federal rules of civil procedure. Everybody sit down and hold up. No, I'm just kidding. I have no general.
I'm awake.
Yeah, you're awake.
Okay, and we'll go on to Board of Directors reports. Reports on ancillary duties. And this one is the Aqua Region 8 Director. As an alternate, I attended the February 2nd Aqua Board of Directors meeting, which prized a lot of introductories to some of the newbies and like me, and legal formation, foundation, and role of the Board of Directors, legal and fiduciary responsibilities. On the Aqua Joint Powers Insurance Authority representative, I've received Q4 of the CWIF. That's the California Water Insurance Fund. Since the inception, the fund is yield 5.4%. But the return on investment for the last year has been 15.6%. On to the report of Associated Water Agencies, Ventura County Rep.
Since the last board meeting for AWA, I attended on the 29th, the AWA admin review, as well as the executive board appointments committee. Kelly brought forward a slate of people she'd like to be on the executive committee, and the executive committee approved it.
Fox Canyon, Redwater,
No meeting since the last board meeting.
report of the Metropolitan Water District Director.
Yeah, excuse me, I've been having
Bad time.
bad time with my throat tonight. On January the 18th, it was the second day of the tour that we had with the Bay Delta supervisors. Again, I think it was very positive. We received a letter on January the 30th from the Delta Delta Counties Coalition. And it was extremely positive. It says that they look forward to working together with us, appreciated our hospitality. They enjoy seeing the projects that we have where we're trying to reduce our the reliability on the state water project, but understand our need to continue with other projects as well as local ones. And they hope that we will work with them in the future, especially when it comes to working on the freshwater pathway, which I know that staff will probably be giving more of an update to explain that.
We can certainly plan to do so at a subsequent meeting if that's the board's pleasure.
I thought you didn't think that they had real understanding what the freshwater pathway was about. That might be a good one, but it's just short. Doesn't have to be a bit long.
Okay.
So anyway, that was positive. I also attended the board meetings, the committee meetings and executive committee on January 21st and 23rd. You've got my summary on my written report. On the 24th, I attended the Southern California Water Dialogue webinar. And staff gave a year recap in the water scenario from 2024. And then DWR presented a looking ahead's approach. And on the 26th, I chaired a Zoom meeting of the Bay Delta Ad Hoc Committee. First to talk about moving forward with our relationships with the Bay Delta supervisors. And we plan on having another meeting shortly, probably next week. And then also going up to Sacramento, meeting with them just to continue furthering our relationships with them and keep it all very positive. And that's it. Oh, yeah, that's it.
Good enough. Good. Thank you. And then report of the Imperial LAFCO Commissioner.
No meeting to report.
Okay, and then I just have on that Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance staff meeting will occur February 15th. It follows the AWA Waterwise session. Report of Ventura County Special District Associate.
To go back to the VCREA, I did attend as your alternate to the EV Ready and Resilient Ventura County event on the 26th with where Congressman Brownlee and Kelly Long presented the grant that they got from the federal government for building infrastructure on electric vehicles.
Very good. You should go to the 15th.
Excuse me?
Maybe you should go to the 15th. Okay, and then so let's see, we have the director's list of admin co-reimbursable meetings other than ancillary duties, so.
How about H?
Special
I
district.
think we overlooked.
Yeah, we missed BCSD.
BCSC.
There was a meeting at the Conejo Recreation and Park District, award ceremony. And it was a great meeting, a lot of interesting presentations. The dinner was delicious. Calleguas did not win any of the raffles.
Good, non-reportables. Good, thank you. Okay, so then we'll go on to the directory list of other than. And so Director Roberts, you want to start?
Sure. Since the last board meeting, I attended the managers meeting here. The CCWC, which had some very thorough and interesting presentations in part by some of our own staff. And the burritos were delicious.
There's a red chef too.
There was it was great. Great asada burritos. And I think that was the first in-person meeting and it seemed to go very well. Participation was high and information seemed to deliver and stick better than the online counterparts. And other than VCSDA, that's it since last board meeting.
Okay, Director Veal.
On the twenty-fifth, I attended the managers meeting. On the 29th, was the AWA admin review. On the 30th, I took the web training, gift card scams training. I really needed that training, considering somebody emailed me asking me for gift cards. I'm all for it though. On yesterday, I attended VCSDA. And today I attended board meeting.
Dr. McMillan.
Yes, on January the 18th, I attended CSDA's new member committee orientation. On the 25th, I attended the managers meeting here at CMWD. On the 29th, I completed my cybersecurity training on gift card scams. I attended CSDA's annual employment update online. I also attended a Zoom meeting to discuss Calleguas and MWD strategies on issues going forward. I also attended on the same day was luncheon to hear a lot more about flow meters. And I attended CSDA's on the second, I attended CSDA's membership committee via Zoom. And then today, the Las Virgenes tour and also the Calleguas Las Virgenes Public Financing Authority meeting and the board meeting tonight.
Good, thank you. And then I attended following the Aqua board meeting on February 2nd, the luncheon meeting with the AWA manager. And then I went to the Las Virgenes tour and tonight's board meeting. So any discussion on the upcoming meetings?
I would just bring to the board's attention that our next meeting will start at the adjusted start time of 4 p.m. And we are planning to utilize the time for a strategic communications workshop, so it will be on the longer side for board meetings. Coffee. And we will have coffee.
Okay, then any other board member upcoming meeting? I'll be attending the 32nd annual economic forecast at CLU on the 9th. So request for future agenda items?
Just to add, I think there might be a Port Hueneme Water Agency in February. I'll be attending.
Okay. Future agenda items? In closed session? In closed session? Well, then we get to adjourn. Thank you all very much.
Christine?